Hello everyone, in the previous video we've discovered how to use the grisaille underpainting technique to paint values and volumes easily. Today we're going to move on to the next step and I'm going to show you 3 useful techniques to add colors on top of the grisaille. If you haven't watched part 1, click on the little icon in the corner to get there or follow the links in the description box. Alright, so let's do this. Let's just start with some palette preparation. I'm using the following pigments for this demonstration: titanium white, yellow ochre, transparent red oxide, cadmium red, quinacridone rose, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and cobalt teal blue, which will also be added later. I premixed a value scale of 5 skin tones from light to dark, and I'm adding some medium to follow the fat overlay rule. I've already covered this in my previous video, so you can go back there if you need. For this selection of pigments, I'm not using them just based on their particular shade, but also for their transparency or opacity. Knowing which pigment is transparent and which one is opaque is going to help us do different things with different pigments. Transparent pigments will help me glaze, and opaque ones will help me reshape the portrait and add more texture to the skin, also do all the retouching that I need. Within my selection, titanium white, yellow ochre, cobalt teal blue, and cadmium red are all opaque, whereas burnt umber, transparent red oxide, ultramarine blue, and quinacridone rose are all transparent. Based on the proportions that I use for my premixed values, the lighter shades are more opaque and the darker ones are more transparent. So I'm gonna have to keep that in mind for the rest of the painting. The first technique we're going to talk about is glazing. If you remember my previous video, I told you that you can color a grisaille with either transparent glazes or opaque paint. And let's just start with a simple glaze, just so that you can see what it does. As you can see, the glaze is pretty much like a uniform filter over the grisaille. It sort of works here and there, but not everywhere. It would be too easy if we could simply apply a single glaze over the entire surface to get the skin tones right. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like this. If we lay down a glaze like this, we can't achieve all the subtleties of the coloration of the skin, and it's going to look sort of sick and unhealthy. What especially doesn't work is the color of the highlights. The lightest parts of the skin need to be opaque to be convincing. If we use glazes for the shadows, it will look convincing in most cases, but for the highlights, opacity is needed. That's basically going to be my strategy for the entire color phase. Use transparency for the shadows and opacity in the light areas. I cover color mixing in great details in my courses, and if you want to learn more, I can only recommend that you have a look. You'll find a link in the description below. My first course is focused on oil painting techniques from beginner to intermediate, and my second course is more advanced and focuses on color theory and its applications for painters. I have received great reviews. I'm very proud of these courses, so if you want to learn oil painting and color, I'm sure they can help you. Alright, let's go back to the video now. Glazes, as I said, work very well in the shadows and dark areas of the painting in general. For the lips, for example, a nice rose glaze over a rather dark lip will look convincing without too much effort required. Glazes are also very useful for transitions between shadows and lights. In this area that is sometimes called the bedbug line or the terminator line. Glazes in this transitional area bring a lot of chromatic character, and they are generally not too strong or disturbing because they are only located in this transitional area. It's a technique that I call transitional glazing. It's pretty effective, especially when working over a grisaille. The second technique I'm going to show consists in using thicker, more opaque paint in the highlights. As you saw earlier, glazing doesn't really work on the light areas, like the forehead, the volume of the nose, the upper part of the cheekbones. The glaze doesn't just change the hue and the chroma of the grisaille, but it also makes it darker, which is not what we are trying to achieve for the light areas. You see that if we only use glazes, it looks like it has color, but it still looks livid and ghostly. To counter this effect, I'm going to paint these areas as opaquely as I can, scooping more paint with my brush, almost like an impasto. I still work little by little, step by step, and I prefer to avoid making the paint too thick too early. For thick paint in general, it's always a good idea to build up the layer progressively and finish with the impasto at the end and not start with them. This is why the fat over lean rule is complemented by the thick over thin rule. I don't hesitate to cover the light parts of the grisaille layer, building upon it with thicker paste. If I have corrections to make, I also make them with opaque paint. Transparent glazes are obviously not capable of making corrections and retouching because you can see through. Because of the grisaille, I don't have to worry about proportions, values, and volumes anymore, and I can only focus on texture, chroma, and hue. Basically, every shape, every value is already in place within the space of the canvas, and I just need to refine with color. It's almost like making 50% of the work during the grisaille, and the 50% remaining with colors. Because I'm using an indirect approach, meaning that I'm working with multiple layers, wet on dry, I'm going to stop for today, let the painting dry, and come back the next day when it's dry. So, I'm using an indirect approach for this project, which means that I'll be making small improvements and allow the painting to dry between sessions. I'm going to divide the process in multiple layers. So basically we have the underpainting, which is the grisaille we made in the previous episode. The next layer is then called the first painting. Then the one after that is called the second painting, the third painting, and so on. And every time, I make sure that the new layer contains a little bit more oil than the previous ones. This way, I respect the fat over lean rule. Working wet on dry like this has many advantages. The number one thing is that it's easy to make corrections little by little. It gives you time to see how the painting evolves and how to improve it little by little. The indirect process is a must for painters who like retouching a lot, for painters who like finesse and details, especially sharp details, as they are way easier to paint wet on dry. The idea of the indirect approach is to make small improvements for each new layer. As you can see in this demonstration, I'm always trying to refine the shapes, make the features more precise, the proportions more accurate, and the skin tones feel more light, and make the skin tones more lifelike. This way of working is less spontaneous than its counterpart, the alla prima approach, but it's definitely better for accuracy and likeness. If you feel that you struggle with portraits and likeness, you should definitely consider starting with the grisaille and then build up the likeness wet on dry like this, little by little. It can really help you. Moreover, this indirect approach is ideal for skin tones in particular, because the skin is not uniform and monochromatic. It's a very complex color full of nuances and subtleties. As you saw when we simply tried to make a unique, uniform glaze over the surface, it doesn't work like this. Just like our painting, real skin is made of a multitude of layers stacked on top of each other. Some more yellow, some more red, some more blue. And that's why this wet on dry painting process is ideal for creating convincing flesh tones. Alright, so I hope that the 3 techniques that I presented to you in this video helped you see more clearly how to continue after the grisaille, and I hope that they helped you understand how to paint better flesh tones for portraits. That's going to be it for this video. If you liked it, remember to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. Again, a huge thank you to my Patreon members. This video wouldn't be possible without your support. And if you want to join the community, you'll find a link in the description below. You'll also find the link to both my courses, my oil painting course and my color course. Alright, that's it for today. As always, my friends, joy and inspiration to you. Bye.